What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and it is a game where the running back situation on the Dallas side is very, very weird. They called up Dalvin Cook, but what does that mean for how we're going to build lineups? I'll dig into it after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. Tonight, I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco 49ers. We got a 47.5-point total with Dallas as 4.5-point dogs in this one. So I'm going to dig into this matchup. Before I do that, make sure to hit the like button. I'm looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video a little bit later on. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. You're going to want to subscribe because you can sign up for alerts at that point and know when my shorter video comes out later on if you guys hit that 30 like mark. The afternoon slate or the regular main slate is looking really good right now. We had Jameis Winston and Cedric Tillman both in the short video today, and both featured in the lineup build for player pool earlier on today. So those lineups are looking really good, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going for this game. All right, so it's an interesting game in that Dalvin Cook joined the Cowboys earlier, I believe, in the offseason, and he has not had his opportunity to play yet. He's been playing on the practice squad, but the running back situation has been really bad for Dallas, and they decided to call up Dalvin Cook. So now tonight we should see Dallas Cook's debut. The thing is, Rico Dowdle's been pretty good so far these last few weeks, but Jerry Jones is old school. They brought back Zeke, thinking that Zeke was going to be this beast for them. Rico Dowdle, probably not the traditional Dallas running back that they like. He's more of a Tony Pollard type of guy. And you can see these last few weeks, he started to come alive a little bit, but really still underwhelming in the general scheme of things. He still only has 1 week where he scored 19 DraftKings points. He has yet to hit 100 yards rushing. And so Dallas is now super frustrated with the running back situation, and they have brought back Dalvin Cook, who, according to Diana Rossini, has been taking first-team reps with the team. So it's very interesting situation because look at Dalvin Cook's price. He's way down here at $1,500. And, if you look at the local media reports on Dalvin Cook, he's recommitted to football. He went into some intense training program in the offseason. He's been tearing it up in practice, blah, blah, blah. But how much of that are we buying into this? The only thing that we're interested in is this $1,500 price point and the potential for Dalvin Cook to make an impact on this slate where we got a lot of studs that we got to work into our lineup. So let's see how that's going to affect how we build today. Going to lead things off with Jordan Mason. Mason will probably be one of the higher owned captains. He's been really good. This is a game that San Francisco has a really good chance of handling pretty decently against Dallas. Dallas is missing a ton of people on their defense. They're missing Micah Parsons. They're missing Deron Bland. They're missing Jordan Phillips. We got Eric Kendricks, a linebacker who's questionable. We got Nick Vigil, another linebacker who's questionable. Both those are good for Jordan Mason. And we got cornerback Kalen Carson, who is also questionable. Overall, we got 3 top 4 defensive players for Dallas who are out, which is not good for the Cowboys defense. On the other hand, on San Francisco's side, most of their injuries are offensive injuries. We're looking at Juwan Jennings, who is out, Brandon Ayuk, who is out, Jake Moody is out, Deebo Samuel was questionable. Looks like he's going to play. Looks like George Kittle is going to be good to play. Cornerback Diamador Lenore is questionable. Safety George Odom is out. He's questionable. Defensive tackle Devin Givens is out. So we got an interesting situation shaping up with this game, with Dallas's injuries and the situation with their running game and how they're going to handle this game. They're on the road in San Francisco. Both these teams need this win. San Francisco has struggled this year. I showed you like the game logs for Jordan Mason, but you can see they've lost quite a few games so far this season. They've lost let's see what their record is. They need a win in this one, because as favorites at one point to win the division is very it's very competitive this year. Let me get a look at these standings here. All right, so we're looking at Seattle is 4-3, Cardinals are 4-4, Rams are 3-4, 49ers are 3-4 as well. They're in last place right now in the division, so they desperately need this win. They were, like I said, favorites to make it to the Super Bowl. The good thing for them is they're only a game out, so they're not out of it, which is good. Like all these teams in this NFC West have lost at least 3 games. So Rams aren't in as bad shape as you would expect with a 3-4 record, but they really need this win. Dallas is a beatable team. Dallas has sucked this year. We look at Dallas's record here. Dallas has won only 1, 2, 3. They've won 3 of their games. So they're about the same situation as San Francisco, although the division they're in is much more competitive. If we're looking at their division, Commanders are 5-2, Eagles are 5-2, Cowboys are 3-3, and Giants are 2-3. So Cowboys are a couple games out, but regardless, both these teams need a win to keep any sort of playoff hopes alive. And Dallas has not been happy with the run game, and it makes sense that they are trying to make a move in the run game. Misguided, it might be, but they are trying to shake things up with the running game. We got Mike McCarthy. He's on the hot seat, and they have to make a move. And they're turning to Dalvin Cook to potentially play a decent role in this game. So a lot of signs there for a good value on Dalvin Cook. CeeDee Lamb is, having mostly a down year. We've seen like some weeks where he's barely scored over 15 DraftKings points. He's only done it 3 times this year. So that's not the typical CeeDee Lamb that we're used to, not the guy that people were drafting first overall, but he held out during the offseason, and these holdouts affect how these running backs or wide receivers or whoever comes out the gate. They don't come out the gate hot, and CeeDee Lamb definitely hasn't. He did come out the gate slow last year too, but this is not necessarily the spot where he's going to pick things up and show that like the old CeeDee Lamb is back. San Francisco is only allowing 13.8 DraftKings points a game to the slot receivers and 13.9 to wideouts. Only one receiver has eclipsed 100 yards against them this season, and that was Justin Jefferson. So CeeDee Lamb is in a rough spot, a rough matchup here, especially being basically the only weapon on Dallas and the guy that the San Francisco defense will focus in on. He's also expensive at 15.9 in the captain, 10.6 in the flex. Christian McCaffrey still on IR. We should theoretically get him back in week 10, I was hearing. Deebo Samuel is dealing with an injury. He was sick with pneumonia. He had a bunch of fluid in his lungs. It was very questionable throughout the week whether or not he would suit up, but it looks like he's going to give it a go. And we don't know how affected he's going to be by pneumonia. Pneumonia's, pretty serious to come back from. So he could be very sluggish in this game. But Deebo Samuel could also, be a flu game candidate. So Deebo Samuel could go either way with him as far as the matchup. Dallas is giving up 22.1 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. They're giving up 9.1 to the slot. Deebo runs 39% of his routes from the slot. So that's significant for him in the matchup situation. One guy who's interesting to me as far as these wideouts for the San Francisco 49ers is going to be Ricky Pearsal. He's very cheap. He's another one of these cheap salary relief guys. He got the majority of the targets when Deebo went out last week. He ended up getting 5 targets, only had 3 receptions for 21 yards, but that was his first game. Ricky Pearsal was a hyped up rookie. Some people had him like in the top 10 on the draft board and top 10 for receivers on the draft board. And he got shot in the offseason, so he missed all of the first 6 games. He comes back in week 7 and he has, like an immediate impact with getting targets. And they needed him because Brandon Ayuk went out with a torn ACL. He was gone. Deebo was injured. Kittle got injured in that game. They were dropping like flies on the San Francisco 49ers. And that sets up Ricky Pearsal here to have a decent impact on tonight's game. We got Dak Prescott. Prescott has, let's see, what's he done so far? He's had a couple weeks over 20 DraftKings points, but largely disappointing year. Corresponds with that lack of performance for CeeDee Lamb. And San Francisco's only giving up 15.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. Dak Prescott is in desperation mode tonight, though. So, I wouldn't rule him out of my player pool, but Dak Prescott, not the best situation for him tonight. Brock Purdy, better situation. Dallas's depleted defense. Brock Purdy's playing at home. They're home favorites. There's a lot of things going in Brock Purdy's way, and he's had decent performances. He's had a few over 20 DraftKings points. And then he had that one over 18 DraftKings points as well. So, he's been doing better than Dak. They're about the same price, but, either one of these guys could have a decent game tonight. He's only averaging a point more, a little over a point more than Dak Prescott. Either one of these guys could have a decent game. The Cowboys defense, though, are giving up 19 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. And San Francisco has dominated Dak Prescott in every game, basically, that he's played against them. Take a look at that situation. Let's go over to Pro Football Reference. We'll check out Dak Prescott's career lines against San Francisco. So in the playoffs, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 254 yards, 1 touchdown. Those are the playoffs. He had another rushing, 27 yards rushing and a touchdown in that particular game. In the regular season, 153 yards and a touchdown, injured reserve for another one of them. And the best game that he had was in 2017, where he had 234 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was a long time ago. They're completely different teams now. But like during the most recent iteration of this San Francisco team, Dak Prescott has not performed well against. So that, kind of gives you an idea of what we might be able to expect. Let's check out what CeeDee Lamb has done in those games. Go over to CeeDee Lamb's career against San Francisco. Obviously, with CeeDee Lamb being the only weapon in town now, these might not mean as much as, but they're more interesting to look at. 13 targets, 10 receptions, 117 yards. That was a good game. 5 targets, 1 reception, 21 yards. That's in 2021. In 2023, he had 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 49 yards. And 2020, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions, and 85 yards with a touchdown. So really, that was a punt return touchdown. So really with CeeDee Lamb, like none of like maybe 2 of those performances would have gotten you into the optimal lineup at his cost. So CeeDee Lamb is not necessarily a lock tonight. He's been very, very sluggish this season, like I mentioned. He's only had a couple decent weeks, a couple usable weeks with 19 DraftKings points and 23.6 DraftKings points. But CeeDee Lamb could catch on at any moment. So he's not one that we want to keep out of our player pool. But if you're building like one lineup, he might be a good fade candidate. George Kittle. Kittle is having a decent year. Like he's had a bunch of weeks over 20 DraftKings points. He's probably the best receiver on the San Francisco 49ers right now. And he does even better when they are missing one of their key receivers. And he's been really good because Christian McCaffrey's out. So he's been getting those extra targets there. Week 10, we might see this turn around. But for now, George Kittle is firmly in play as a captain as well, just based on the necessity of George Kittle. Deebo's banged up. We got rookies all around him. George Kittle might be the guy that they lean on in this matchup. As far as his matchup against Dallas, it's not that great. 9.9 DraftKings points allowed per game, but Dallas has been susceptible to tight ends recently. So, it's not a situation we necessarily need to shy away from. Give you an idea of what Dallas has done against tight ends recently. All right, so Laporta had 12 DraftKings points against them. Hayward and Freiermuth combined had about 20 DraftKings points against them. Theo Johnson, he's a giant. Isaiah Likely did not do well against them, only about 1 DraftKings point. Other than that, Njoku and Atkins combined had about 16 DraftKings points. So they've been, somewhat susceptible to the tight end position, but not necessarily a smash spot. But given the situation with the pass game for San Francisco, Kittle makes a good play tonight. Rico Dowdle is another guy that's interesting tonight. Like that situation I was talking about at the top with the running situation in Dallas, they're trying to straighten that out. And Dowdle has not really delivered to their standards for running backs, especially after, they coming off an era where they had Zeke as a stud and they had Pollard as a rising stud. And then they got rid of Pollard and, they had to bring back Zeke, and Zeke and Dowdle just have not been cutting it for Dallas. And that's why they brought in Dalvin Cook. And now we're going to see Dalvin Cook's debut tonight. But Dowdle, maybe that'll light a spark under him. And his salary in the flex is $8K. So Dowdle, he's a guy that's going to be interesting tonight. Guerendo is a guy that has been getting, a little bit of work, in relief of Jordan Mason. But Mason is back from his shoulder injury, and he played a full game last week. So I wouldn't look to Guerendo to have much of an impact in this game. And he's $7K, so it's pretty ridiculous price on him. Jake Ferguson is the number 2 pass catcher in this offense. Unless Jalen Tolbert might have been taking over that role, but Jake Ferguson, 7 targets, 11 targets, 5 targets. He's a good tight end. Normally we avoid tight ends against this San Francisco defense, but Jake Ferguson, I think, is a guy that might get the volume to overcome a situation like that against San Francisco. Let's look at San Francisco versus tight ends. Kelsey had 5.7. Noah Gray had 10.6. So combined, they had a little over 16 DraftKings points. Fant had 12.3 for Seattle. McBride had 11.3. Hooper and Henry had 12.3. So you get the idea there. For Ferguson, I might project him at around 12 points, just to be on the conservative side, assuming he doesn't score a touchdown or anything. But Ferguson, I could see him scoring about 12 DraftKings points, which may not be good enough to get him into an optimal lineup tonight. Jalen Tolbert, looking at he's come alive recently. He had that 21.7 DraftKings points against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got a pretty good pass defense. He had 13.2 against Baltimore. He had 14.2 against New Orleans. He gets a decent amount of targets. So if we were looking for a guy to pivot away from CeeDee Lamb in a game script where Dallas is going to be playing from behind, just keep in mind with the San Francisco defense, they've been more susceptible to the slot. They've been giving up 13.8 to the slot, 13.9 to wideouts. But it's an interesting matchup here for Tolbert if we want to get away from CeeDee Lamb. All right, so scrolling down, if we're looking at Ricky Pearsal, Ricky Pearsal is who I mentioned earlier. I like him tonight at 5,800. Aubrey has been a stud. The dude has gotten over 10 double-digit DraftKings points in every game so far this season, including that 21-point game against Cleveland in Week 1. I would not be surprised to see Aubrey somewhat busy tonight. So I think San Francisco will be somewhat susceptible for Dallas moving the ball. So Aubrey, I would not rule him out of lineups tonight. And Anders Carlson, he got called up because the backup to Moody got hurt a couple weeks ago, and Anders got called up against Kansas City. He ended up getting 8 DraftKings points, so made 2 field goals. But he was on Green Bay in the past, and obviously they cut him for a reason. Kevontae Turpin, 7 targets and 5 targets in his last couple games. He's a $4,800 salary. He's interesting for sure. I'm not really sure, let's take a look at his. Oops. Sorry, guys. I had it on the wrong screen for you guys. Let's take a look at Turpin's snap share recently. Looking at 46% before the bye, 29%, before that. Jalen Brooks got 71% of the snaps and 49. Jalen Brooks looks like he's been a little bit more involved. Tolbert, he's firmly the wide receiver 2 at this point. And Lamb, obviously. Tolbert had more of a snap share than Lamb in the last game. So Jalen Brooks looks like he might be the number 3. Kevontae Turpin, though, is always interesting guy. He's got like an explosive element to him. So, maybe we see something out of him, but 7 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets. And his price is creeping up, though. He's at 4,800 this week. Let's see where Jalen Brooks is. Jalen Brooks way down here at 1,200. So he's getting all those snaps. 6 targets prior to the bye week. Only 2.5 DraftKings points, but 6 targets. That's a lot of usage. San Francisco's defense, like I said, is susceptible to the slot. That might be more favorable to Turpin. I think Turpin runs like more of his routes from the slot. So Turpin's interesting, but Jalen Brooks, you can't ignore the opportunity there, especially with Turpin now creeping up close to 5K. 49ers defense are interesting tonight, just with how decimated Dallas's defense is, and the idea that they're going to be playing from behind potentially and throwing the ball a lot. That's going to lead to mistakes, and the 49ers defense might be able to capitalize on that. They've had a few good games already this season. Cowing is a rookie, another one of these rookies on San Francisco. He's at 4K. They priced him up, probably expecting Deebo to be out, but 4K for Cowing. Just I'll take Pearsal over Cowing, but that could be a good pivot if you're looking for a pivot. I think Pearsal is going to be the starter though, opposite Deebo. So Cowing though is interesting if you're looking for a pivot off of Pearsal, who should probably have more ownership. Let's get a look at Pearsal's ownership. All right, Pearsal is looking at about 28% projected total ownership versus Cowing, who is at 2.5 total ownership. So that gives you an idea there. Now, there's no certainty that Cowing is going to underperform versus Pearsal. Like Pearsal could have a dud tonight at 28% ownership, and if you pivoted to Cowing, then you'd be ahead of the field, a significant portion of the field. There's just so much up in the air on these guys. It's difficult to know which one of these guys is going to get more play, but it looks like Pearsal is ahead of Cowing in the depth chart. So I would expect Pearsal to get the first run, but these are two rookies, so they might rotate them more often that they would normally rotate guys. San Francisco runs a lot of two wide sets, so that's why we see our guy Juwan Jennings not get as many opportunities. Jennings is obviously out tonight, so yeah, these rookies are going to be interesting tonight. Taylor, not interested there. Cowboys defense, I'm not really too interested in the Cowboys defense. Look at all these negatives. Like their defense used to dominate, but they're missing so many players for injury. They're just going to continue to struggle. Juszczyk might be in play. Juszczyk was getting a decent amount of work last or 2 weeks ago. He ended up getting 4 targets. He got 3 targets last week, but they're calling all the reserves in for help in the passing game, and Juszczyk is one of those guys that could pull off a sneaky game. He's at 2K. He's worth keeping in the player pool. Ronnie Bell had a costly fumble a couple weeks ago. And he just has not really been doing too much, but we've seen Ronnie Bell get touchdowns in the past. I wouldn't necessarily rule him out if you're doing mass multi-entry. I wouldn't put him in like one of my single entries though. Other than that, the Jalen Brooks I mentioned, he's at 1,200, and right under him is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's the guy that I have the most interested in as far as the scrub diving at 1K. I could see Dalvin Cook, old man Jerry Jones demanding that Dalvin Cook get some run in this game, so they test him out. Would not surprise me one bit. San Francisco has been allowing 22.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, so they are vulnerable to running backs. I just it's something that you can envision with Dallas for sure. By the way, Dallas is allowing 19 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position versus San Francisco's only allowing 15.9 to help us out with those Purdy versus Dak decisions. Dallas is allowing 27.6 DraftKings points a game to running backs and 22.1 to wideouts. So a lot of advantageous matchups for Dallas. As far as the captain ownership, CeeDee Lamb is coming at the highest, closely followed by Jordan Mason. Deebo's in that list. The guys who I'm interested in who are under 10%, you got Dak Prescott's at 9%. So if you wanted to, like build a story of Dallas game tonight, Dak Prescott is at 9%. George Kittle is under 10% as well. And Jake Ferguson, Rico Dowdle, all those guys are under 10%. Ricky Pearsal is a guy that I'm interested too at that low ownership in the captain. He's a cheap guy. We'll build one with him. But let's start off with a chalkier build. Let's say that CeeDee Lamb ends up having a decent game. I think the situation with that, you got to put Dak in there with him. And I would put Jordan Mason in there because I'm assuming that, they're playing from behind. That leaves us with 4.5K per guy. Let's get Cook in there because it's not going to take Cook a lot to pay off that $1,000 salary, and we need salary relief. That brings us to 6.2K left per guy. We can go with Pearsal in this situation, give us a pass catcher for San Francisco side, and that leaves us with 6,700, and that puts us in Tolbert territory. So we could add Tolbert in there to give us another receiver for our Dak stack. That gives us a 4-2 build in favor of Dallas, which is going to be rare tonight, or at least rarer than the 4-2 San Francisco build. Looking at about a, it's a significant, it's 30% less ownership on a 4-2 Dallas build. So you got about 30 versus a 20% ownership. 4-2 San Francisco to 4-2 Dallas. So very interesting there. Like it's easy to build when you got like that $1,000 Cook option. If you wanted to take Mason out, you could take Mason out and replace him with Deebo. You could replace him with Purdy. You could replace him with Kittle, any one of those guys. Let's clear that out. Let's go with a captain Kittle build. Kittle's got a foot injury, so, be cautious there. But let's say Kittle has a decent game. I want to put Purdy in that too. I'm going to put Mason in there as well. Let's get Cook in there for that salary relief. Putting a lot of assumptions on Cook having a decent game. We got these guys in here. Let's put in Lamb. It's going to leave us with 4,800. That puts us in Turpin territory. It puts us in 49ers defense. I don't mind either of those. Cowing. We already got no, we don't have Pearsal in there. Let's take out I can't get Pearsal in this lineup. So this would be a situation where Cowing would make more sense, where you can't afford Pearsal. You also got Turpin in there, but Turpin's pricey for like his fantasy output. But you got some options there in the 49ers D, of course. Let's clear this out. Let's go with a Deebo, because Deebo's another captain option in this game. He's a little more expensive than Kittle, but let's put Deebo. Let's give us Purdy, and let's give us Mason. Let's put in Lamb. That's going to leave us with 4K. If we put in Cook in this lineup too, that leaves us with 3K. Puts us in Ronnie Bell territory, so maybe we don't want to go in that direction. Let's take out Lamb for this build. Let's put Dak in there instead. Gives us 4K. 4K with Dak. We could put Cowing in this build. We could take out Purdy if we wanted to. Let's say that Deebo maybe rushes, doing a little more rushing in this one, getting points that way. We take out Purdy and we put in Lamb. That leaves us with 2,800. It puts us in that same spot. Maybe we got Juszczyk as an option there. Jalen Brooks, who I mentioned earlier. If you wanted to take Mason out of this build and put Purdy in there instead to give him that pairing with Deebo, that leaves us at 4,400. Puts us in at least 49ers defense territory, which would make sense. You know, gives us cowing option, Cowboys D if you want to go that direction. Let's see. Let's clear this out. Let's go with a cheap guy. Let's put Pearsal in that captain. Pearsal is a nice mystery box for this slate. We don't know, what to expect out of him, but he could easily, show up and be the electric rookie that everyone was expecting. Let's put Pearsal. Let's get Mason. Let's get Lamb. Let's get Purdy. And let's get Kittle in there too. That's going to leave us with 1.5K. That puts us in Cook territory or Brooks. You could use either one of those guys in that situation. If you wanted to use Deebo instead of Kittle, only leaves us with 300. So that one's harder to do. You could take out Lamb and put Prescott in there. That leaves us with 11K. If we wanted to get that extra receiver in there for the San Francisco side, we could go with Kittle. Leaves us with 2,500. Puts us in that situation where we can get Cook in there. We could also go Deebo and have Cook in there as well. So, a lot of decent options. I kind of like the Pearsal captain situation. We don't know what to expect with him, but he was getting targeted a decent amount last week. Let's go over to see how many snaps he got. 76% snap count in his first week in. That's huge. Other San Francisco guys, none of these guys were getting 76% snap shares. Chris Conley came the closest at 70%. Conley's another guy we can take a look at, former Kansas City Chief, now with the San Francisco 49ers. He was hurt with an ankle throughout the week. Only 2 targets last week. Pearsal's got the pedigree. They drafted him. They didn't trade for him or didn't sign him as a free agent journeyman. So Pearsal, I would lean over Conley. Conley has the veteran aspect, maybe an advantage there, but I would lean Pearsal over Conley. But yeah, decent slate. Gonna do some more research and get you guys this show. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes so we can put out a shorter video later on. Make sure to hit subscribe on the channel so you can sign up for alerts when those short videos come out and when future showdown shows come out, because I'm always doing these showdown shows for every slate. And we got Thanksgiving coming up too, so you're going to want to subscribe ahead of that because we're going to have a ton of shows coming out for that. So, all right, guys, good luck and hit that subscribe, hit that like.